So just as a brief introduction, my name is Asti Sherring and I'm the time-based art conservator at the Art Gallery of New South Wales. And just for a little context, the Art Gallery has been undertaking a dedicated project into their time-based art collection for the last 3 years. So this also encompasses the audiovisual archives held in our National Art Archive. So today I'm just going to focus on one critical aspect, and it's actually sort of taking a step back from digital preservation and sort of more about how to make that first step in getting people on board. So what I'm going to look at has been highly instrumental in advocating and developing a change process at the gallery, and it really comes back to defining the terms that we use to identify and catalogue time-based media artworks. So for those of you who aren't aware, that time-based art, as we've defined it, is artworks that has a durational property that often does have media carriers, but also involves things like kinetic, performance, and iterative-based artworks. So with no prior consensus or methodology for defining and describing these artworks, what we were finding is the gallery couldn't actually fully understand what we were acquiring, what we had acquired in the past, and so we couldn't even begin to successfully advocate for care, storage, and display parameters that are very different from traditional artworks, and as you know, require a different way of storage, handling, and display. And so this is really having conceptual, financial, and organizational consequences. So what we aim to do is develop and implement new cataloguing procedures that could be applied to these kinds of artworks to accurately reflect the physical, digital, and variable elements that actually constitute an artwork. So it was a complete rethinking of our database, and it took place over a 2-year period, and it relied heavily upon curatorial, database management, and conservation to work closely to answer the very basic question of what is the artwork. So what I'm going to do is in this process, we used a number of case studies as things came up for loan or display. I like to refer to them as troubled children. And so I think it's just easier to work to these case studies. So this first one is Nalini Milani, and this is an artwork Unity in Diversity, sorry. And so one of the key problems we had defining and cataloguing a work like this was that we only looked at it in regards to the thing we got. So this work, as you can see here, and this is what appeared on our website, was catalogued as a single channel video. So the catalogue record reflected the elements of the work that had been placed physically into our collection store, so in this case just the hard drive containing a video component of the work, but it didn't reflect the work as it has been required to be displayed, and so therefore it wasn't an accurate representation of the work. So it was only when it was requested for outward loan in 2016 that it became clear that it was not accurately described in the database, and significant components of the work were not documented within the medium description. So that's what it should look like. Research by curatorial and conservation established that the intention of the artist was that this work was an installation that included video, sound, specific playback equipment, but also contained a custom gold frame and furniture components to be sourced by the gallery at the time of display. It also was to include photographs supplied by the artist. These soft copies had been obtained, and it was actually located within a curatorial file folder on a CD. And so it didn't make its way to the digital server, and it wasn't recorded in the database. This gold frame that you see placed around, it's a Panasonic Plasma, was made according to the artist's instructions, but was not listed at all in the catalogue record, and it was kept in an equipment storage cupboard. What was further determined when we actually started talking to the artist and researching the work is that actually this Panasonic Plasma that had also been retained was not integral to the work, that this work could be displayed using a projector or a monitor, and that it really depended on the spatial requirements of the room that we were using at the time. So this work is now correctly entered into the database, and it was really our first step in determining how we needed to sort of look and ask questions and different kinds of questions to ensure that we can display and care for a work as intended by the artist. The second case study is Anthony McCall's Meeting You Halfway To. And so this is a little bit different, as whereas in the last one we found that we weren't properly acknowledging all these integral and dedicated components that weren't physically brought to us at the time. For this, it kind of went the other way in regards of elevating integral equipment when actually it's a concept that's important, not the random equipment. So into that. So really, this has not come out of like benign neglect or anything. It's more about traditional understandings of the work, that when you receive a painting or a work on paper, that item that you receive at the time of acquisition is the artwork, and it's stored correctly and housed. Whereas in contrast to these works that are ephemeral and variable and iterative, they often contain their concepts, or you may just get a piece of paper with a set of instructions. And in this case, that's what we got. And so the equipment that the equipment that was elevated to this artwork and stored with the artwork is really just supportive auxiliary equipment and not the artwork. If it's too convoluted, it gets very art wanky. So in this case, it's a haze machine and a projector. Okay, simple equipment parts. And they were identified as the artwork. However, what was revealed in an artist statement is that the artist considered the equipment only to the extent that it supports the realization of the work. In fact, the work is a single-channel digital projection which creates cursive forms, and then the haze is utilized to create this beam of light, and that is the work. So these equipment parts are not integral. So what we're doing by putting them in a cataloging system is we're saying, well, we're going to have to look after this haze machine forever because it is the haze machine, where actually, as you'll see, it's haze that's important. I might let that one go. It gets very... We spent a lot of time talking about these things. And so my last example is Gary Hill's Liminal Objects 8. And it's comprised of both sculpture and media object parts. And it was originally described as a video installation with a black and white CRT, a Laserdisc player, and Laserdisc. However, the video on the Laserdisc has already undertaken 2 format changes. So it's been migrated from a Laserdisc to a digital Betacam, and then transferred from a digital Betacam to a digital file, which has been stored on our gallery server. At acquisition, we never received the Laserdisc or Laserdisc player. We received the migrated digital Betacam. However, the medium description that was on the catalogue provided on the certificate of authenticity established that the Laserdisc and the Laserdisc player were the 2 original equipment parts. So what we sort of found from this example is that also in revising our cataloguing system, we wanted to ensure that the medium descriptions accurately reflected the work, in that they represent the original medium and its migration history as well as its current display format. So we basically wanted just to be really honest with our audience and also give this kind of material heritage the same elevated status as you would give to a painting or a sculpture. That actually TV More, the fact that he only chose Sony mini DV cams from a certain period of time is actually materially as significant as, oh God, I couldn't even tell you a Picasso example. That's how far I am away from traditional art. But you get my drift. So really one of the major sticking points when talking about change, both internally and with the artist, is in our experience the word change has negative connotations and it often prompts resistance or hesitation. If an artwork has changed, then typically as museum professionals, we're told that something has been lost and that this loss is undesirable. However, the decision to share with our audiences, both online and in the gallery, that these works have undergone a change. Initially, it did take some convincing. However, it was agreed that the honest documentation of format changes is not only important in terms of material accuracy, but also interpretation and display. And this information is archival in nature, and it will definitely help guide future decisions. In reviewing the processes at the gallery that led to the inaccurate cataloguing of these works, it became clear that the processes we were using for managing these physical components that need to be placed in a collection store didn't apply at all to ephemeral and conceptual elements. So we have lots of practical outcomes and different documentation practices. I still have 20 seconds left. So just to kind of end that, by introducing the right terminology and systems into our database, which is our gallery's central nervous system, we've been able to provide at a most foundational level a framework that supports the day-to-day tasks and communication of all collection management staff, alleviating much of the frustration and confusion previously felt by staff when dealing with these kinds of artworks. And it's marked a significant step forward in staff engaging with the artist, ongoing, and determining what the work actually is, rather than accepting what arrives in the box from the artist or vendor.